Hey, so today we're going to be working on the snow blade, getting ready for snow season. Let me show you what we're going to do. So in the past, I've always had issues with the snow blade when I'm pushing, that I'll hit a little something on the corner if I've got it angled, and the lever will pop back just enough for it to release, and then it'll slide back. This is not how this should be. I've got this big long spring hooked around one of these bolts here, and it's pulling ahead kind of on the lever, but also pulling up. It's not doing a good job. I don't know how it was supposed to be from the factory. When I got it, I got it from an uncle. They had just a hook of a spring hooked into one of the holes down here. I'll show you more here in a little bit, but it had the same problems as what I've got here. So what I'm going to do is come up to this front plate that where the swivel actually comes up and acts as a stop. And I'm going to weld on a little piece of steel in here, probably 1/4 inch thick material or something along those lines. Weld it down to the base, weld it to the top, and drill a hole so that my spring is pulling directly on the lever. Then I'll also probably pick up a spring that's a little bit stiffer than these, so it takes, I mean, this doesn't take much at all. This is way too light. So I'll put a little stiffer spring in there. And then I need to also look into what this lever's off of. You know, I think it's just a little light pin or maybe a bolt. It's feeling maybe like it's a little loose because you can lift up and down on it, and I want to check that. I also want to check the pivot pin here. After I get all this modification done, I'm going to also be installing the snow blade on the G1800. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I got to do is start taking apart everything. So carefully try to release that spring, and then I need to get a couple wrenches and take off these trip springs. I'll take those off, then I'll unpin the blade from the hinge points, and then we'll take this pivot pin out, and I should be able to take this whole bracket off at that point. So I'm just going to hold this. This is all stainless steel. I use stainless steel hardware because I knew it would be in salt. And it's just a lock nut on a 3/8 long bolt. I think it's a carriage bolt. But there's no way to hold the bolt, so I'm just using pliers here. Luckily, with it being stainless steel, this has no oxidation on it at all, and it's 3 years old now that I've been using it, which is pretty nice. Now our snow blade should be free. I don't have an end wrench big enough. I go up to 1 1/16", and it's probably a metric, so I'm going to use just a big adjustable wrench. I'm going to first try to, oh look, that was loose. Wasn't jammed up too tight. Takes that off. Then I got a washer. Not quite sure what the hole's in it, but it does have a couple holes there. Not sure what those are for. And we should be able to pull this bolt out. So this is the part I want to work on. This is the part where I'm going to be welding a bracket in here for this lever to pull against. And I had said that I was going to look at the hinge on this, but when I actually looked at the bottom here, it's not really a hinge at all. It doesn't look like. Let me get you a close-up on that. You've got the lever up here, and you can see there's a little hole for the spring, but all it is just riding between this roll pin here and this roll pin here, and that keeps it from falling out, but there's not an actual hinge inside that it's, you can see in there, Not a lot of light. There's no hinge pin that this lever's actually hinging on. So that's kind of interesting how they chose to do that. I would have figured they would have had a pinhole through there, but they don't. Then this hole, although it has a little wear, it's not bad. The upper hole's fine. Looking at the bolt that they used for hinging, not really any substantial wear. Some wear right up here in the threads where it must be pivoting. It's part of this here hole that's actually where it's pivoting on that pin. It's got them rounded, but it's still fine. So, all right, next thing I got to do is get a chunk of steel and weld. I'll probably try to go for the same height, maybe a 2-inch wide chunk, 1/4 inch steel right in here with a hole drilled through it for that spring to pull against. So we'll be back with that here in a little bit. So I went to the hardware store that's close here. Not the ideal place to buy steel. It's pretty expensive. And the thickest that they had was 3/16, and this is 1.5 inches wide. So it was the thickest and the widest they had. They did have some 4-inch stuff, but it was only 1/8 inch. So I'd rather have 3/16. It should work. It'll be plenty strong. No wider than it is this way. It'll be directly pulling. I will weld it at the top and along the bottom, so it should be fine. So let's go ahead and get to modifying this. One thing I want to do is on the top edge, I want to round it. So if I'm sticking my hand down there, I don't cut it. And then I also have to, on the bottom side, round it because of the way this bracket is. It's not a perfect 90. So I have to allow for that curve that they've got in the bottom of it. So we're gonna draw this out and then get it cut. So we're gonna say 3.5 inches, about there. And it's just gonna be kind of a rough drawing. I'm gonna cut it out with a angle grinder. Need to cove it a bit for the bottom corner. And then on the opposite corner, it's gotta be rounded. So we'll do a rounding. And before we cut this, so it's a little easier to handle, I'm gonna go ahead and drill the hole for the spring. The spring I picked up is this. It's about a 4-inch long spring, kind of like a trampoline spring. It's pretty stiff, so it should work well. So this is what it kind of looks like. You can see we've got a little relief cut in for the bottom. Got the hole drilled in here. And it's chamfered a little bit on both sides, and then it's angled at the top. I'll dress all this up with a flap wheel because I got to have it on the grinder anyway to clean up that orange piece of iron. So we'll get that done next. I'm gonna test fit this here. Looks like that'll work pretty well. And we're gonna weld it. Looks straight enough. Alright, I got it tacked in place pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and start putting my beads in. I think I'm a little cold. Alright, I'm going to let this thing cool down and then hit it with a little bit of a wire brush and then probably shoot some paint on it just to keep it from rusting. And no, I'm not going to showcase my weld. Sorry guys. there I got it kind of sprayed up. I used some Alice Chalmers orange that I had from when I was doing the Harrow project, just to give it a little paint. And we're gonna reassemble. Put the washer in, first nut. That's too tight because I can't pivot it, so I'm going to back it off. There, freed up. And one more. Yeah, we should be able to pivot on that. Put the jam nut on. There we go. All right, let's say that looks pretty good, and it is a lot stiffer than it was. It really snaps in good. The other hole was way down here and pulling up. I don't think it was doing a whole lot of good. I mean, it kept it ahead, but nothing like this. It's gonna be a lot better. All right, next thing we gotta do is put the blade back on, and this thing will be ready to put on to the tractor. So they got two different holes. I'm using the bottom hole. I think if you use the top hole, I don't know, maybe it would give, well, it would give more leverage on that cutting edge. So probably trip over easier. But the bottom hole is what I've always used. Rotate our pin back up. Okay, the only thing left we got is the recoil springs. I like that a whole lot better than it was, and it looks neater. So with the way this this blade hooks, we don't use these mower brackets, which are real similar to the BX's. Just a bracket, hinges off the front, clip in the back. It's for the deck. So I take those off, drive the tractor ahead. I would start it, but I don't want the garage filled with exhaust right now. Oh, we got to get the bracket for the front too. See, this is just 1/4-inch bolts going through this. It doesn't take a lot to hold this iron on. It basically, there's this upright on the hitch, and it keeps that upright centered in the tractor. It also gives you one heck of a shin grabber if you don't take it off when you're done with snow plowing. All right. I'll shove the blade in the rest of the way. So you can see in here, maybe I've got this this deflector plate that I modified. Oh, I built this one. The original just had a little deflector plate that kept stuff from hitting the steering arm. I built this one that goes clear underneath this drag link and hooks onto the rear hitch. It gives me bolts in the front and the back to push on, because this blade was supposed to go on a 2-wheel steering machine, and it would have went clear back to the back hitch and would have pinned on there. Well, I modified it to work with this tractor, and it hinges right here in front of the axle. So I'll come in from the other side and first clear out the hinge pin, because it's full of dirt and debris. And then we're going to raise the hitch up and get it into that There you go. Okay. Now we're gonna the lining bar. The trick is this thing is pretty tight tolerances, and you got to get it lined just perfectly. It's close. I mean, I'm almost through. Just a little bit off. There it goes. Okay. Put my hairpin clip in. And then put my lift linkages in. Okay, so you can see that the mower lift links lift up on this bracket, and that's how we lift it. So we'll see if it all works now. All right, so we're going to quickly check here if this all works good. Yeah, the spring is clearing everything. Still pulling pretty tight against it, and it ain't going nowhere. Try it on the other side. Looks good. So you can see my welded in bracket, my poor weld job, but should work fine. Got the tension spring. The original hole for it was way down here. I moved it up to here. It gives you a lot of leverage against that lever. It's clearing this bolt. It never cleared that in the past. It used to rub on it some. So all in all, I think it worked out pretty well. Still got to put the rear weights on, snow chains and all that. But at least the blade's on and ready to go. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hoosier Helpers. Please remember to hit like and subscribe. Bye.